A boxing champion is gunned down by her ex-boyfriend in the Eastern Cape. A 6-year-old girl is still missing after being kidnapped for ransom outside her school in Vanderbijlpark this morning. In Cape Town, a man has appeared in court in connection with the disappearance of UCT student Uyinene Mrwetyana, allegedly abducted at a post office in Claremont. Now, to discuss some of these disturbing latest crimes, Dr. Nthabiseng Moloko from the Gender Equality Commission joins us now via Skype. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Just as I'm reading those headlines, it really makes for depressing news, doesn't it?
We are in a state of crises in this country. It's not only in terms of the gender issue, but I think there's a lot of tension, lack of social cohesion, and a general lack of direction that we can say we are really facing as a country, and we need specifically leadership at this time. And I think it's not a time for those who are in power and authority to raise their hands in problems, but to rather say, listen, we have to do something and give direction to the nation. We are in a serious state of crises.
So I'm going to take them case by case, as it were. I'll start with your reaction to the kidnapping of Amy Lee Diaga from her mother's car outside of her school this morning. Quite a brazen act. What is your reaction?
This shows you that the level of violence in this nation in terms of lack of safety has reached disproportionately high levels that are unmanageable. An average human being, a normal person, going to their day-to-day activities by taking a child to school. And it's not the first incident, Tsepi. So I want to mention the issue of the children who were molested by a security guard at a school in Gauteng. This is in the past year. So it's not the first time where a basic need, schooling and education is a basic fundamental right for every child. But now you are taking your child to school and your safety is actually not guaranteed. And so should schools be places where safety and violation of that safety is actually propelled? Absolutely not. I think schools should not be places where you have to now enforce and have security. And where we're living in a security state. Something has to be done by society. The neighbors have to look out for each other. People around have to look out for each other. And it's concerning that children are now the targets of these incidents and not just young adults and people who are adults in general. And so
allow me to jump in and ask this question. This particular crime, kidnapping a child for ransom, is that not unusual, though, for South Africa?
I think it is highly unusual, and this is not a common occurrence. And I believe that the fact that they're asking for a 2 million rand ransom says that they have a sense of understanding perhaps of the family's economic situation or plight. And I think law enforcement agencies have to quell this in the bud immediately. This cannot be accepted as a form of trying to extract rent from parents, family, or even society in general. And I hope that they expedite, the capturing of these perpetrators. Now,
another disturbing aspect of this is the grandfather is believed to say he believed that the little girl was specifically targeted because it would seem that the men pushed the little boy out of the way and kidnapped the girl instead. I mean, there are all kinds of scenarios going through my head, which, obviously one definitely doesn't want to think about. But what does it make you think, though, that a little boy is pushed out of the way to kidnap a little girl? Is that just basically speaking to how vulnerable girl children and women in this country are?
The stats are telling us, Tsepiso, that the vulnerability of women, generally speaking, are at heightened and increasingly heightened levels. The fact that you'll push the boy child out of the way, and it's likely that these perpetrators may want to, we hope that that doesn't take place, but molest that child or have extreme sexual violation against that child and use this to try and increase their ransom in any way. And this is absolutely unjustifiable and uncalled for, but it does extenuate and prove that girl children specifically are at most more vulnerable and more oppressed in this country.
Speaking of that, there's a shocking case of Uyinene Mrwetyana. A suspect is already in custody, but this is a man who worked at a post office who deliberately told her to leave the post office in Claremont and come back later. So it sounds like a premeditated act. And obviously I'm not law enforcement or a lawyer, but it sounds like she was already vulnerable from the moment she walked in.
So there's two things that I want to point. Firstly, the nation is really cut. I think families, women, university students are trying to understand what have they done as women to deserve this type of a treatment. And this young girl just went to do a simple errand to try and post some type of a parcel. And a man who was on the other side, who was supposed to offer assistance in a post bank or a state facility, gives misinformation, and he knew he had nefarious intent and motives without obviously revealing those. What is really concerning is that, number one, this is an ordinary man. I think the time has come that we stop trying to make perpetrators of gender-based violence people that look horrific, look monstrous. It's ordinary people that are behind tellers that are supposed to be helping us day to day that could violate you at any point. And this is so concerning because an ordinary girl went to do an ordinary errand and she never came home. The second thing that I want to really make a call for is that, the male perpetrator could potentially have done this previously. He may have prior assault cases and violations in this regard. And we see that with sexual violence, women are always reluctant to report because of the issue of secondary victimization and also the issue of being labeled by society in general. And I think my call is to say families need to really change the fundamental underpinnings of how we deal with the issue of sexual molestation in families, abuse in families, and domestic violence. Because we really try to make families quiet and not talk about these issues. We don't call perpetrators to account. We don't hold them accountable. It's a criminal act to abuse a woman. It's a criminal act to sexually violate. It's a criminal act to commit molestation, particularly on minors. You have got to hold them to task, and it is not okay to be silent. And it's likely that perpetrators repeat. Yeah.
Dr. Nthabiseng Moloko, thank you so much for your time at Insights. She is Commissioner for the Gender Equality Commission.